Welcome back to GetSome. This week's episode is Lawrence Osai. Lawrence is in the data and security team, data privacy and security team at ServiceNow. Normal ServiceNow safe harbor applies. We talk a lot about some cool features that are coming in Yokohama and the future. Of course, we talk about these future things. They're not there yet, so they're not guaranteed. Don't make any purchasing decisions based upon what Lawrence and I discussed today. But if your organization is starting to consider data privacy in ServiceNow, watch this episode. You'll find it very informative. Hey, Lawrence, thanks very much for joining me on the show. It's really good to see you again. How are things going where you are?
Everything's good. It's a cloudy day in New York. Yeah, we've not had the best of weather lately, but it's slowly turning around. So hopefully spring is around the corner. But otherwise, everything's good. Work has been really busy. We have a release coming up in a few weeks here, and then working on future releases, roadmap, and everything. So yeah, been staying busy and staying warm.
Yeah, good. So yeah, I mean, that's obviously the big news in the ServiceNow world at the moment is Yokohama coming out shortly. Your area of ServiceNow is data privacy in that space. Can you maybe tell us or tell me a little bit about how you got into that and a bit about the data privacy space of ServiceNow?
Yeah, so actually, I got into this space sort of by happenstance. I was within a group in consulting at my former company, and the group was basically focused on a lot of cybersecurity. And all of a sudden, a couple regulations started coming out, like GDPR, and then customers reached out to the same practice within the group and was like, hey, we're focused on sensitive data and securing it, but there's actually like regulations with fines and associated like costs for us as a company. Can you guys help us comply? And I think quickly, like every consulting firm, that's a business opportunity to sell. So they started shifting a bunch of us resource-wise from doing typical cybersecurity strategy, assessments, vulnerability management, implementations over to data privacy. So we're sort of learning as the regulations were getting passed out. So that was, early in career for me. I was, excited to be in a very emerging space. As the regulations were coming out, we're sort of helping customers comply. And yeah, that was sort of my journey. It was like cybersecurity was the entry point, did that for some 3-4 years. And then when GDPR came around, CCPA came around, it was really around, a ton of customers saying, you're doing security for us. There's this other stuff we don't really understand what it means. Can you help us? We're doing typically like readiness assessments. Can we comply today? Do we need a year? Do we need 2 years? And yeah, that was my journey from security to privacy. And then today at ServiceNow on the product side, which was a move I wanted to make mainly to sort of drive the strategy and build something. On the consulting side, it was a lot more of the, defining, assessing, and sort of leaving something on the table, but you didn't get to really know or see that thing get built. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, that's cool. Privacy. I think that the concept of privacy, a lot of people are coming to grips with being different to security. I mean, in my mind, I see security as managing and protecting access to data within the platform. Privacy being more around controlling the authorized release or exposure of information. Like you can secure information. It's encrypted. It's not even available for someone to see. But for example, you can, if you were to do queried data, you can query data and determine information and sort of expose privacy. Like I might be able to do things like query a range and go, who's got a salary of more than $200,000 at the company? Now, I can't see the exact salary because that field might be securely encrypted. But if the query says, oh, well, yeah, 15 people do, it's like, oh, okay, I know this company's now got 15 people with a salary, and maybe I should, that might give me some information, some meta information, which is in the privacy space. Interesting. So Sort of tell us then about ServiceNow's data privacy product and what ServiceNow offers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just building on your point, I was actually talking to a customer a few days ago, and they were bringing up, they feel like they have the security of their data. And then they were like, well, we started looking into not necessarily privacy. They were actually looking into like the NIST framework, and NIST sort of puts privacy, HIPAA as well. They say the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information. So I think that's always like a good framework. It's like a CIA. And a lot of customers are like, we have the security, but the CIA on top of it, sort of thing. And that was a good reference. So I just always use that to kind of build on, like, they go hand in hand, but most times security comes top of mind, but now privacy, because of regulations, is like a bit of an afterthought. So in terms of data privacy at ServiceNow, so let's talk a bit about product and what we offer. So we offer data privacy as something customers can buy, like we call it like a premium security product. So we give you your core features out of the box, like identity, authentication, and those things. And then data privacy is really, there's some core components. So I will caveat, data classification is a core component available to every customer. You can classify your data just to know, what's private, what's internal, what's public, what's sensitive. So that's available as a core feature
in the platform to everyone.
Yeah, in the platform. Yeah, it's technically within the product bundle, but it's available to everyone. You can classify your data, and then what we build on that with is, first things first, before you even classify, can you discover your data, right? Because classification assumes your data and where it is and what's sensitive and what's not. So that's one piece. But if you move left a bit, you come to discovery, right? So one of the product features is data discovery. So going out there and saying, okay, where is my sensitive data? And then to know that typically is informed by some sort of data classification standard or something that says, hey, we care about, confidential and super confidential information, for example. And in confidential, we have social security numbers, routing numbers for bank accounts, etc. And then you would use discovery to go find those things out there. And then you would, find those things and then put them in the appropriate data class, which is the next step. So in a way, we let customers say, maybe you do know everything that's out there and you just want to start a classification, but the discovery step is typically where we find the most value in customers. Like, go out there, find where these things are, classify those tables and columns accordingly. And then the last step in the product journey is data anonymization, which is really around putting the right protective layer on top of that data. So, some customers go with encryption by, regulatory standards and legal, while some other customers come to anonymization, and they think of anonymization more of, it's actually more permanent. So you really need to know what you're doing, because it anonymizes the data both in the user experience and in the database. So if you want to anonymize, it comes with a sense of, understanding on how that data will be used. Do you need to partially anonymize? Maybe people need to see parts of it, but not all of it. Or do you need to fully anonymize because you want that information to be completely obfuscated from any end user? So that's the product. It's 3 of them: discovery, classification, and data anonymization. That's the sort of bundle. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions there on the discovery. So how does discovery work and discover? Is there some built-in smarts into the discovery part of the application that looks for, say, field names? Like if a field name is SSN or email, does that sort of trigger it as, hey, that's likely to be that sort of thing? Can you configure it with regex expressions to go and look for something like, say, we've got a custom business identifier number in our organization, which is a weird string format.
Yeah.
Can I configure that? Can I configure the discovery to look for that for me?
Yeah, 100%. So you nailed it. It's primarily regular expression based. So we have some regular expressions out of the box for like the traditional types of PII you see everywhere. So, date of birth, social security in the US, for example, driver's license numbers, passport numbers, things like that. So we offer a couple of those out of the box. On top of that, we let customers actually configure to their business needs. So let's say you have customer ID numbers, like you said, or employee reference numbers, things like that. You can configure those regular expressions within the discovery process itself. And then to answer your first part of the question was, then you could target that discovery across, okay, so I want to discover employee number, SSNs, and I know it could be in the following tables. Or you could also say, well, I don't know where it could be, but these are the places I care about it possibly going into. And then you can go discover like that. So it's sort of like there's the obvious ones, right? I know a column, I'm going to go to that exact column and see. That's probably more on the reporting. Like, I just want to know how many of these are out there. And then there's the accidental, if you will, like, hey, what are social security numbers doing in my incident tickets? So you could go scan the incident table and apply the regex for social security to discover that in that particular environment.
So can I, assuming the case where, like, I don't know where all of my data is, and can I do a full scan? Like, can I tell, hey, ServiceNow, go scan everything and look for social security numbers and tell me where you find them?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we let you, we give the user the level of control they need, right? These jobs could take hours sometimes. So we typically see customers that are like, listen, I just want to scan this particular, or the whole thing really. And we suggest off business hours, run the scans, make sure it's configured to the things you really care about, and go out there. And it's up to, we give the customers that flexibility, as well as the people who really know, we give you the granularity as well.
So then on the granularity point, I imagine in a structured field, like I've got a string field, which is my email field, that's a no-brainer to discover. What if I've got journal fields like work notes or customer comments? And so I've had a service desk person who's been typing away, and on a phone call, they've typed in a security number. Does Discovery find that? And if it does find it, does it tell me that, hey, there is data in the incident tables journal field, or will it tell me a record? It's like, this record has got a number in it.
Yeah, so you touched on a couple of features there. So in Yokohama coming up, we're actually launching full discovery and anonymization for journal fields. So all journal fields, work notes, comments, it will be able to say, an SSN was discovered in incident comment, and that was anonymized, for example, right? And then I think the next thing, which you sort of touched on a bit, is there's the real-time component of that, which is as the data enters and it's saved, that gets anonymized in real time. We'll talk about that, and I'm sure there'll be follow-up questions about the feature set, but that's one feature, real time as it comes in. And then we have, in hindsight, or as a cleanup, this data is probably out there, but we want to make sure it's no longer out there. We can go run a job, as they call it, to go clean up that data from those journal fields. But yes, journal fields discovery and anonymization is supported for all UI experiences as of Yokohama. So yeah, that's something we're excited about, because it really touches on what you said. There is structured and then there's unstructured, where it's really hard to catch. So it's really about, going through those unstructured fields and applying those, what you call regular expression patterns, to discover sensitive data.
Yeah, okay, that's good to understand, that being able to capture it in the unstructured fields. The real time is cool. Another question I had about the anonymization is it reversible, or is it, say, can it be role based? Like, can I anonymize fields for ITIL but allow ITIL admin to see an unanonymized field?
So anything when it comes to the data and what you can see and not see, I think that's where we always think about the use case, and that's more of an encryption sort of use case when you talk about, what you can see, like securing the data in terms of like what you can see and not see. Anonymization is generally considered irreversible. So that's why we always educate customers on, like, if you think this data in its, natural form will have business value for you need it for some business operations, maybe encryption is the route. But if you're really convinced that, let's just give an example of a common use case in your slower environments, like, you had this data in production, you clone to sub-production, for example, and you're like, I don't want anything development testing to be using real data for any reason. That's where anonymization would come in. So it's irreversible. I will mention that from a platform standpoint, we have a rollback period that's valid for 72 hours when you run an anonymization job on data that is already on the platform. So when we think about the use cases I mentioned, the real time as it's coming in, if you really are monitoring that and you care about accidental PII coming into certain places, that part is not reversible. Because I think that's you saying, I don't even want this ever to come in, right? And then the second side of that is we offer rollback for, okay, the data was already on the platform. Now we want to anonymize it. We have a default period of 72 hours where if you've anonymized, I don't know, 10 social securities from several incidents, in that period, you can roll that back.
Yeah.
But that's just a platform feature we offer as like a sort of like a compensating control in case there's a fat finger or like, I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess things my assumption is that you need to be aware of the fact that anonymization in production is different to doing anonymization in your sub-production environments.
Of course.
In production, it's irreversible, and that's it. You can't see that information anymore. It's now become X's or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and I guess, again, let me know if this is an incorrect statement, but my feeling would be that the biggest benefit for ServiceNow clients with anonymization and data privacy really is in the sub-production environments where you can reduce that attack surface because all of your PII and critical data, which is going to those sub-prods, now suddenly is no longer identifiable, which is great, because prior to that, everyone's got access to dev, everyone's got access to test, and it's probably more people have got access to that than they've got to prod in terms of your internal employees and with higher levels of access and roles. So reducing it there is actually probably the most important place to do it, is my gut feel.
Yeah, your gut feel is correct. That's what we're seeing from our customers. Our primary use case is almost always in sub-production. We have a couple confident customers that, apply it to certain areas in production. In production, I think, as you can imagine, real time is probably one of the more important use cases, right? Like, I don't want people entering their social security numbers when talking to agents about cases. So you could do that in real time, right? You're like, that should never be healthcare, personal health information should never. So the real time in prod we see as well as sub-prod, but really sub-production is where people are like, I need to reduce this attack surface. There's tons of data that I'm cloning, and that data in production made sense, but in sub-production, I don't need that data in any capacity. Or, like I mentioned to you, we offer partial anonymization where you could, anonymize it in a way where the guy, like my support agent, is still able to triage tickets because he knows this person's last 4 digits of their social security is this. So I can verify the caller and, continue my work as intended, but I don't need to know their full, social security, something like that. So we give that range. Yeah.
So I guess that's the other area where anonymization can have an impact is around, well, in sub-prods, is in testing. Like if I'm trying to run some tests against a field that's meant to have credit card numbers in it, and suddenly everything is just 16 X's, then I've got an issue. So are there options around how you can anonymize a field like that?
Yeah. So what we do is we call those techniques in the product, and we have various techniques. So we have format preserving techniques. So things that, will preserve a credit card is 16 digits, starts with 414 ends with, I don't know, 50, like a credit card format that someone like if it's being read, it's like, okay, that's definitely a credit card number, right? It might not have the full credit card number itself, but it'll be able to detect. And we have other techniques that we've introduced, and one of them coming in Yokohama is specific to one of the channels, but forward looking, we're hoping this would have relevance, is synthetic data replacement. So something around, if it was Tim, maybe we replace it with Mike, and it's still, the data is still recognized as somebody, but it's not the right person, So can we make Tim's name like Mike, 1, 2, 3 or something, So
and I guess then the next step from doing that is doing that consistently, so that if you've got me as Tim Schliebs, a user, turning up on an incident record as the caller, and then on another incident record, I become Mike Smith in both locations.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so that's what we're thinking of with synthetic data. Like I said, that's forward looking. But today, what we let customers do is static replace Tim with name everywhere.
Yeah.
So anywhere you see, anything in the format, a typical one we see with customers is they take things like passport numbers or customer ID numbers, and they'll say ID redacted. So it's like, okay, it was an ID there, and you're able to like say, okay, this person has a problem with this account, but you don't have the actual ID number, for example. So so we have different techniques, and really customers get really creative. We've seen cases where they want to go left to right, leave some things in the middle because those two things can help agents, but the rest of it is not relevant. And we've really seen customers really get creative with the techniques, and they're fully customizable as well.
So the techniques are scriptable. You write a script to take the input data or field and then transform it or anonymize it how you like to. That's how you can customize the technique, is it?
Yeah, so what we do is we offer I want to say 8 or 9 out of the box techniques. And what we let customers do is we don't let them modify those techniques, but they can apply those techniques differently. So while you're configuring a technique, you can change things like, okay, I want to start this from, the left, and I want to anonymize the first 3 with asterisks. The next 2, leave them, ignore hyphens. So you could do, a common one you see is emails. People say ****. I want the @ symbol still there. And then I want to know the next thing. So maybe it's a Gmail account at Gmail. And then I want to, ****, the rest of it. So you could get, it's editable, but we offer out of the box techniques, about 8 or 9 of them. Yeah.
Right. And so there's the out of the box, which you can edit and play with and apply in different ways. Can you create your own new techniques?
We don't support that today. We don't support creating a custom technique. And I think that goes back to something you were alluding to. That requires a high level of technical expertise to kind of know. So we've actually, most of the ones we have out of the box satisfy customer use cases. We've had a few use cases come in, and those are product improvements that we're looking at. But most of our out of the box techniques are fairly standard with industry around like what is really the different ways you can anonymize: partial, full, static, random replace. We have even remove. We have a remove technique that completely gets rid of it. We have take no action. So I'm in this column. This data that I know is sensitive, I don't want to take any action. I actually don't mind it being there. But this other one, we can do a no action. We can do a remove. So yeah, there's a bunch of techniques that are out there.
So are there any impacts on, say, workflows in ServiceNow if you're adopting any other than what we've already sort of discussed? Or?
Yeah, so I think something that I wanted to call out, and I think it's really cool, we have this coming out in Yokohama, is we're actually doing some integration with Now Assist. So that's, talk of the town, a lot of our prompt-based, agent-based use cases. So we're actually offering that sanitization for Now Assist. So what that allows customers to do is you maybe want people interacting, but you don't want that data when they're interacting to be, you don't want the sensitive data to be parsed and processed.
Yeah.
So you can actually configure data privacy to scan this real-time, discover this data that's coming into your, I don't want to call it, well, chatbot experiences, things like that. So that's one workflow that's a very exciting integration, and it's a very relevant use case because you see a lot of customers adopting Now Assist and things like that. So
could you say I've got an integration out to some third-party app where I'm sending out incident information? Could I build a flow and have a step in the flow which says, hey, look at this data, anonymize this before it's sent?
100%. Yep. So we have an API, and you can call the API in that flow. And that's actually one of our primary use cases. People sending data to third-party service providers. Yep. You could call the anonymization API and be like, listen, I want to send this data, but I don't want all the following things to ever make it to that third party. That's a very valid use case and one that we support. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Are there any performance trade-offs if you're using data privacy and anonymization?
Yeah. So there's no, I think the real trade-off there is how much data you have and how much sensitive data you're trying to discover, right? So if you had one, maybe you cared about employee ID number and you only cared about it in one place, that job can run, in seconds. But to your point, what we see is first-time customers to data privacy, they want to scan the entire landscape. Yeah, so we always say, for that first one, we say off business hours. Yeah. Because it doesn't have too much of a performance impact on the instance itself, but it's the duration that it goes for. It can be long. So typically we say off business hours for the first one. And then we've also brought in functionality both in Xanadu and Yokohama and more in Zurich around making these a lot more recurring. So that's sort of easing the
load. Sort of differential scans, is it? Like,
yeah,
you do the big,
yes. You do the big one. We call them, yeah, exactly, incremental scans. That's exactly what's coming. We have that coming in Zurich, and it's like, oh, I do the first one, and for the next ones, I just want, just what's coming new, and
what's been altered. Yeah,
what's been altered. So that's like, minor enhancements we're making, and then we also are letting customers who say, I actually care about the whole thing still. Oh, well, go ahead. If you want to report for reporting purposes, for example, I want my full sensitive data landscape, you can still do that as a full scan. So there are a couple of things that we've implemented to sort of improve performance and also efficiency, right? Because an admin doesn't want to always come back and run these every day. So we give you a weekly, we give you a monthly, we give you a daily option. So each time you come in, you're getting, a snapshot point in time of like, today we're here, next week we're here, things like that through our dashboarding capabilities.
And are you able to configure alerts? Like if it discovers a new table or field or an existing field that's scanned before, but suddenly someone's put some data in there, can you pop some emails or something out of that?
The alerting we have today is specific for attachments. I'll give you context behind that. So when these jobs are typically run, there's like a job summary that is generated, and an admin can, see exactly, this is where we found sensitive data. This is like the findings, like columns, tables, etc. So there's no real alert other than your job is complete. Here's your job report, job summary, feel free. Or next steps would be, you could go anonymize, or if you wanted just for reporting, you could do that right there. But I think the other part of what you talked about is alerting, like letting a user, the admin know. We have that only today for attachments. And what that does is for attachments already on the platform, we actually in Xanadu introduced, in Yokohama, sorry, we're introducing discovery from attachments. And what that lets you do is you apply SSN, all these things to attachments, you discover it, and it sends you an email, hey, we found 300 attachments with the following sensitive data, and then you can go view the attachments and take action. So yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like like you're saying that the admins don't want to be doing a big scan every day, and look, admins have got so much going on. Anyhow, I think I would like to be able to set up my data privacy scans to go, and then I know the dashboard's there, but I'm not going to look at the dashboard every day. But if I can get the alert to go, hey, we found something new or something changed, that would be of use, I think. Just to
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, yeah, I actually thought of that the other day, and the only concern which we had just very early on from a product standpoint was over alerting. Like, because an admin's inbox is like, hey, like there's stuff from the log side of the house, there's stuff from security, there's stuff from certain vulnerabilities, and you're like, okay, which of these is priority? And I think that's where we're getting at. But now that we're able to give them a lot more fine-grained control around the experience, like weekly, monthly, that's perfect for like here's your weekly digest, right? Like everything for the week, everything at the end of the day or every month, so I think there's definitely room to improve just the alerting and reporting capabilities. I agree.
Yeah. Are there other features and enhancements that are coming? And I'll stick the safe harbor thing at the start of the video, so
yeah.
you're okay.
No, I think I touched on a couple of them. Integrating with Now Assist to sort of sanitize that real-time prompting and like that agent experience. So that's actually a really cool one that we're really excited about, and a lot of our customers are definitely going to see value there, because so much data is going into Now Assist that the best thing is to be able to protect that data from being parsed. And maybe one other layer to also add to you is we also integrated with the data extraction layer, which is when the data gets sent to the Now LLMs. So we actually able to scrub that as well. So that's another feature coming in Yokohama, where customers can say, okay, this data is coming in, it's going to go to the controller to parse and process. We want to clean that up. And then, okay, yeah, ServiceNow, we don't mind sharing data with you to improve your LLMs, capabilities around inference and performance, etc. Okay, then we have data privacy in that layer again to sanitize the data getting sent to the LLMs.
So am I understanding that correctly? That's something that would be like a built-in LLM controller platform type of feature that's coming. So if I send my data there, then ServiceNow will do anonymization for me as a safety check, a privacy check before it ingests it. That's cool.
Yeah, at a platform layer, that's actually there. And then this is like a complementary customer enabled. So we actually let the Now Assist admin go configure this as well. Right. So think about it as at a platform level, of course, we do our own data scrubbing for sensitive, harmful data. That's like a whole program around that, the AI safety and security. Then supplemental to that, we have the controls at a admin level to say, hey, I actually really, really care about all these other things. Data privacy API, go in there and scrub that data in case it was missed, or that data might not have been captured, whatever the case, I want to go configure. So it's sort of like a defense in depth sort of thing, where customers are very queasy about their sensitive data going to your models, and we're trying to offer them that sort of highest level of assurance.
Yeah. I had another question. It's just escaped me.
I know. I think just before you go there, I think one other feature I really wanted to call out is we talked a lot on the pod so far about regular expressions. We're actually launching what we're calling model-based discovery as well. So to kind of let you know what that's about, the regular expressions are perfect for structured data, right? Phone number has a format, email has a format, date of birth format, identification number, passport, etc. We heard a lot of customers say, okay, but there are things like names, addresses, locations, people's nationalities, political opinions, things like that. And that requires a lot more context to be able to discover.
Yeah.
So we've actually we're launching that in Yokohama, where one channel out of the channels that for the real time as data comes in, you can actually look for, we have 5 coming out. It's name, address, nationality, religious or political group, date and time, and location. So what that does is, it's using in the back end, it's using like 2 models to basically say, okay, in the context of this whole thing, that is the Tim as used, or let's pick a more generic name, like someone like Chester, which could be a word or a person, but we can tell here it's a person, so we're going to go ahead and anonymize Chester.
And that's using AI to do the context there?
Yeah. So it's we're calling it's like an AI machine learning based discovery. So it uses like 2 different models, the Presidio model and the Spacey named entity recognition model. And what those models are basically doing is they're using prediction patterns to basically infer what that data could be, right? It's inferring this could be a name, this is a nationality, this is an address. And
look, I think that'll be a next step for you guys. We'll be taking that to the level where we say, let's say I'm chatting with an agentic AI, an AI chatbot on ServiceNow, and maybe it's HR. Let's say it's an HR request I'm talking about, and I say, oh, look, I heard Gary in the office next to me talking about the fight he was having with his wife last week, and blah blah blah, and like so something like that. That's all recorded into the chat. The AI should be able to go, hang on, this is a sensitive statement here. I want to flag this up to the HR manager and say, do you want me to black this out, or that kind of thing?
Yeah. That's a honestly, great use case. And that's the whole idea behind context-based, is like being able to use, I always tell people generative is like the best, easiest use case to prove, because it's like, I'm telling something to do something and it brings me back something. But then there's the actual just traditional AI, which is predictive, right? It's making predictions based on data that it's seen before. So context, it sees data it's seen before, is like, wait, something here doesn't sound right. Like this should not be in a conversation with an HR agent. So I'm going to, but I think that's probably the next step. But first part of it, to your point, is we heard a ton of customers say, yeah, but name doesn't have a regular expression, right? There's no one way for a name, and even languages. Let's not even get into like the letters of languages and how to detect that. So this is one feature we have come in that we're really excited about, and a ton of customers have told us like they're really excited to use that. Just name alone is like the first use case, and a ton of them are excited for that.
So if I'm a client, I haven't got the data privacy application today, but the classification capability is there in the platform. But if I did want to go and get the discovery and anonymization, then what do I need to purchase? What sort of SKUs do I need to be on? Professional licensing? Is there entry level or?
Yeah. So we actually have we have a free version of it in for 30 days. So we have a free trial for you to try discovery and anonymization for 30 days. And then after that, you would require a license. And the product is licensed in a couple ways. So there's the data privacy standalone. So you could just come in and buy data privacy because you need discovery, classification, anonymization. That's it as an add-on licensed product. Then there's data privacy sits within a product bundle called Vault. And ServiceNow Vault is a comprehensive bundle of security offerings. So it's data privacy, encryption, zero trust access, code signing, and domain separation. So we have all 5 of those in a bundle. And those 5 things in that bundle are basically, sorry, not domain separate, log export services. That's the 5th one. So you can also buy the bundle, and then that gives you access to all of those. As you can imagine, it's optimized where if you buy the bundle, you get more value. But we do have some customers that are really like, listen, we need data privacy alone, especially for like sub-production use case. Like we have some people that are very clear on the use case, some customers, and we also offer you that flexibility. So that's sort of the ways, but there is a trial, and that trial has really been where customers see a ton of value because they start to play around with it, especially in sub-production, and they start to see some of the really cool things they can do. And then that gives them the confidence to actually purchase the license.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, look, is there anything else about data privacy that you want to cover off that we haven't discussed already?
Yeah, I think maybe something else. I know we talked a lot about, structured data, unstructured data. And I think something else that we've heard a lot of and we've actually invested quite a lot in is attachments. The reason why is, as you can imagine, just ITSM at its core is a lot of triaging and, attaching things to help provide context or add more details to things. So we actually support starting in Yokohama discovery from attachments, attachments that are already on the platform. And that's a really, really, I think it's been requested for so long because a ton of our customers are like, we see a ton of attachments that just have no business being in cases and containing all sorts of information. So I wanted to really flag that was one really, I think, really good opportunity to meet our customers where they are. We see a lot more data coming into the platform, and attachments is a primary source of that. So in Yokohama, we're supporting 3 file types. It's a PDF, a doc, and TXT. And on the roadmap for Zurich is some more file types. And then looking forward next year, we're actually looking as far as redaction capabilities, hopefully, to be able to let customers both, okay, now you found it, can I redact that and then preserve the rest of the attachment? Or let's say you don't even want to redact it, you want to quarantine it, like, put it in this sort of safe area. You apply ACL so the people who need it can go to it, but not everybody can get to it, things like that. So that's what, those are some things we're thinking around, and attachments.
Yeah, that's cool. Another thing I was thinking of, which I think would be useful, would be if I could anonymize data based upon, say, the state of a record. Like if I've got an incident record, and like you say, maybe there's some data in there which is sensitive, but actually right now, while we're firefighting and the ticket's still open, it's useful to have it in there. But once it's closed, no one needs to see it. So that would be cool to do too.
That is, I think it's like almost like you're working next to me. We just helped a customer with that use case last week. Where they basically have an SLA of about 10 to 12 days for X criticality of tickets, right? So once that ticket is closed after X number of days, 10 to 12, 14 days, they wanted to trigger our API to actually anonymize the sensitive data. But for the other period while they needed it, keep that, right? So we ended up doing a custom script, that would call the API through a flow. And then that flow would run at the end of every day to find incidents with X number of days since closed, for example. So that was one creative way, but we are trying to, and that's forward looking for us, is how do we trigger this actually based on certain conditions?
Yeah.
Just as at a capability level, without having to like do a custom script or anything. But that's a very valid use case and one that we're seeing coming in a lot. Yeah.
The other one, I sort of mentioned it at the start, but to me, like first thoughts, feels like it would be useful, would be for me to be able to anonymize data based on role. So I know you were saying that it's field encryption, which would be manage that use case today. But if I didn't want to step into managing encryption and field encryption, if I could just say, hey, okay, this is a social security number field, I want people to be able to see the context, see it on the form, understand, like you say, maybe see the last 4 digits, or it's a credit card, I'll show you the first 4 digits so you can determine that it is a Visa card or something like that. But because you're just ITIL, you can't see everything else. But the ITIL admin can see the entire thing. That I think would be an interesting, probably useful use case too.
Yeah, no, that's valid. I think it's the first time I'm hearing of that. Most times we're in conversations, frankly, where we're both on the calls with customers, anonymization and encryption. And once customers hear the sort of what you said of like, oh, on the encryption side, give this guy, they're like, yeah, that means
don't let Mike and the encryption guys take all the good stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's like now it's like every time Mike is on a call, I'm like, do you need me? call me. Let me know. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, Lawrence, thanks. This has been a lot of fun, really interesting. It's a cool product. But,
Yeah.
I imagine it's going to be growing in interest and client uptake because, like you say, GDPR in Australia last year, the year before, we had the big data breach with Optus, one of the big telcos there, and that drove some change in legislation. I imagine in New Zealand, we'll see in the next year or so increases in fines and things for breaches of data privacy. So I think people will be sort of forced into thinking about this.
Yeah. The driver from a business standpoint, I think, is normally compliance, because, regulations come up and then you have to comply. I think increasingly what we're seeing, and I'm hearing on customer conversations, is even internally, a lot of their auditors and data governance teams are actually looking for a lot of understanding around, what sensitive data do we have where?
Yeah.
And what are we doing about it? And I think one of our moats as a group is doing all this for you, but then we have a part where we say being able to prove it. And I think that's a big part of where our customers are really asking us, we want to know all this, we want to handle all this, and I want to be able to tell my boss or the CISO or leadership, this is what we're seeing and this is how we're getting better, right? Was it 40,000 credit cards and incidents and today we're at 3,000? And then you can tell a story of it was better security training on one hand, or are you saying it was in real time, we basically just prevented that from ever coming in? Kind of sort of telling that audit trail story to somebody about how you're using the product, but also preventing sensitive data. And these breaches are very common, and these are some ways you can get ahead of them.
The other thing, I guess, which might be a direction that your team will move into, would be around the data life cycle, like the management of, say, your requests to be forgotten, things like that, where you could flag up a report or a dashboard and go, hey, these user records are 4 years old, they haven't logged in, something like that. Should we just anonymize this data now so that it's done? Or I've received a request from the HR or the complaints team to say, hey, this person used to work here, they want to be forgotten on the platform. How can we do that with a click rather than me have to go, oh God, do I find the user record? It's going to cause a problem if I try and change data here. Those sort of things, I think, too, is probably a field to look into.
I probably glossed over this then. I probably missed it, but we offer right to be forgotten actually in our workflow. So I touched on 2 use cases for anonymization and completely left out. We have a feature in the product called user-based anonymization, and what that actually lets you do is fulfill right to be forgotten requests, for example. So you can, it's by users or groups. So you can say, hey, I've created this group, it's a terminated employees group, and every user that gets added to that on a recurring basis. Recurring is coming in the future, but for today, we can run a one-time job to anonymize all those users, and we know, all the users that their status is no longer with the company, that data has been anonymized. So I probably left out that feature, which is a very important feature, but the right to be forgotten use case is another very common one, and one that we fully support on the platform. And maybe as you were talking about that, something else that I really wanted to mention was, from right to be forgotten and some of those other flows, we've seen a lot of customers come to us and say, hey, but I also want sort of like a one click, this has been classified for 30 days, but nothing has been done. Do you want me to, what AI suggestions?
Proactive.
Yeah, proactive. Yeah. So we have a separate initiative, which one among many things in that initiative is something we're calling AI-based insights, AI-based actions, things like that. It's another product within the Vault package. It's going to be called the Vault Console. Yeah. And what that does is, it's across the 5 products I told you, it's going to be helping you, give you real-time sort of insights across, okay, you have this number of encrypted fields, it's been changing over time. You have this number of sensitive data being entered. It's been changing over time. And then AI-based insights is typically, okay, what next, right? Okay, are we seeing this number increase? Maybe you should anonymize this or maybe you should encrypt this, you know. So that's the idea behind Vault Console, is putting all of that together from this product. Yeah.
It's got to be the next step. Like, yeah, AI is great. I use Grok all the time on my X account. Yeah, and it's Grok 3 is amazing, but it's still reactive. It's one way. I ask a question, I get a fantastic response. I ask a question, I get another great response. What would be the game changer in that space is if while I'm working, Grok's going, hey buddy, here's something you should do, and it's really well thought out, and here's all the steps in it. You know, like you're saying, this table is growing, we're seeing more data here, our threshold has just been reached. Do you want to ignore this, or do you want me to do something about it for you? That once that AI assistant capability moves across the board in ServiceNow, the product's going to become unbeatable.
I think no, 100%. That's where you're really talking about productivity, right? Like, it's like you're predicting what I'm going to need to do, and you're getting me on top of things. That saves me a lot of time, number one. Number two, it's like we just talked about all the different sort of steps in some of these flows. To have somebody just say, okay, I'm going to run this now. Do you want me to do it every week? Like, and then a big chunk of part of my day job is gone, and I can actually just like free up time to actually do like more critical thinking and like, so
it's for me, it's like the builder's laborer. Yeah, if I'm in the yard, if I'm building something and I've got a laborer to assist me, if I have to turn around to them every time and go, can you get me that hammer? Can you grab me that drill? It's useful, saves me some time, but if they're smart enough to go, I see what you're doing, you're probably going to need the hammer. Here's the hammer, here's the drill. I'm like, you rock, you know, and that's what I want out of AI in the applications I'm working with.
100%. An assistant. It's like a smart assistant that's like right there where you need it. And I think the console concept, it's coming in at the end of the year in Zurich, and there's a V1 and what V2, but really that's what the customers have been asking for. Is like there's a ton of you know, just to share with you, because we have the forward looking, that is going to handle a lot of what we're calling auto classification. So you install customer service management, like literally right there and then we're like, here are some tables that we know always have sensitive data in these places. Review, okay, looks good, click, we auto classify. One step done for you. Then the next step after that is like, okay, suggested protections. Okay, this field, you might want to put some zero trust access. It's a field that people access from untrusted networks and trusted networks. This field looks like something people always want to see, but don't want some people to see. Apply encryption. And we're suggesting all of that out of the box. With this console concept, and that way it's like you come in, you configure all this once. And ideally, in that next step of predictive, each time you come back in, it's like, hey, you did this since last time. Here's what's new. Here are some other things you can work on. So that's actually, I'm really excited for that, because that's where people really start to be productive. So
yeah, it's cool. Hey, Lawrence, thanks, buddy. That was so much fun. Really interesting.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is great.
You're welcome. I'll cut it off there for us. But yeah, buddy, that was really, really fun and interesting talk. The product, I think, is going to grow for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited. I mean, I'm new to it. I think I've been at ServiceNow 5.5 months. So, so I'm very new. Came straight out of business school into this, and it's been a ton of learning, as you can imagine, like taking over the whole product. But I see potential in the product itself, and I see a lot of potential in the features we can offer. And those features, I think, to make them really valuable, we're looking at tons of integration opportunities. Like I talked to you a bit about Now Assist. One other one we have coming is we're actually integrating with the virtual agent itself in September. So during agent conversations, you know, like literally as you're typing to an agent, we have that today at the platform level, where if you send an SSN, it doesn't go. The agent just sees XXX. If the agent tries to send you something, that's blocked even. The agent can never send it. But why we're coming in there is we have a lot more techniques, like I told you, to anonymize. So Can you make that just name so he knows? Can you make it email so he knows?
Can it be the first 4 characters of the credit card?
Exactly. So he knows it's a Visa credit card that you want to, things like that. And that's where I'm excited, because as we're moving towards these agent chat experiences, if you can protect sensitive data in those experiences, I think that then is one prevention layer before you even go into like what comes into the platform and what people are entering in real time and stuff. So yeah, I've learned a lot in 5 months for sure.